I'd like to call to order the March 12th meeting of the Clive City Council. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Edwards,
Here.
council members Weaver,
Here.
Klein,
Here.
Hawker,
Here.
Gasparotto,
Here.
and showing Judkins is absent.
Very good. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up, we have the citizens presentation. This is the opportunity for anyone to, oh, moving too quickly. Thank you very much.
Good
Any
try.
additions to the agenda? Seeing none,
Move approval.
Second.
motion and second to approve the agenda. Further discussion, seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes. Next up, we do have citizens presentation. This is the opportunity for anyone to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda. And so Pete, if you could check to see if we have anyone in line, and if there's anyone in the chambers, they should come to the podium. Seeing no movement in the chambers and nothing online, I'll just remind everyone that we follow the pillars of character counts and expect everyone else here to follow those as well. Next item, we have a very happy event here where we're going to swear in a new police officer. And Chief, tell us about it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm very happy to introduce tonight our newest police officer. He started Monday and finally brings us up to full staffing. So we've now got 29 positions. But I'd like to have Ong come up right in this. You guys stand right in the center so we can all stare at you guys. Police Officer Ong Thant began his employment with the City of Clive with the Police Department on March 2nd. Officer Thant was born in Myanmar and he immigrated to the United States with his family in 2011. He grew up in Marshalltown where he learned to speak English and graduated high school there in 2017. Ong is fluent in Burmese, a language skill that is vitally needed in policing and in our community especially. We have about 750 to 1,000 Burmese residents that live here in the city or go to the church right next to the police station. So that's a great help for us. Prior to a career in law enforcement, Ong served in the United States Marine Corps. He was stationed overseas in Japan, and then he came back to Parris Island, South Carolina. Prior to being employed with us, he was employed as a Des Moines police officer in 2024. He was certified in Iowa as a police officer in 2025. And he has since come to the Clive PD. Again, like I said, started Monday. He's currently in the field training program, and upon completion will be assigned to the patrol division. Officer Thant is joined tonight by his wife, Babita, standing in the back. And they are expecting their first child in May. So happy to present him to Mayor and Council, Officer Ong Thant.
Now the hard part, we'll do the formal swearing in. So if you have a right hand, raise it. And repeat after me. I,
Ong Thant,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and the Constitution of the State of Iowa,
and that I will faithfully and impartially,
that I will faithfully and impartially,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
discharge all of the duties
discharge all of the duties
of the office of police officer
of the office of police officer
for the city of Clive, Iowa,
for the City of Clive, Iowa,
as now and hereafter required by law.
now and hereafter required by law.
Very good. So you're sworn in, but there's more. Ageless. So, repeat after me our oath of honor. On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never
I will never
betray my badge,
betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character,
my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage
I will always have the privilege
to hold myself
to hold myself
and others
and others
accountable for our actions.
accountable for the actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve. and allegiance to the United States. Congratulations. Welcome. He's the honorary.
Any family pictures? Yeah. Could have just, I could have made all the officers come up here. I almost thought about doing that. They would have been like, thanks, man.
Listen, all the show.
Mhm.
This will not be repeated.
All right, next up, we have consent.
Move approval. Can we pull item 14 off for further discussion?
14.
I'll
Is there a
second. Second.
Motion second to approve consent with the deletion of item 14. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Now, item 14. You have questions?
I have several questions, Mayor.
All right.
So just want to get some confirmation on the remodel of phase 2 for NAI Electric and really the consistent change orders that I'm seeing on this, and they're on a monthly basis. Not just one, but it just seems like, 10,000 or 50 in December, another change order for 3187, another change order for 3299. It just seems like change order after change order on a monthly basis. And as we've seen with, and I'd be interested to see on the bidding process with this, where the bid from NAI came in with the rest of the bids. It's typical in the past, and unfortunately, we've seen sometimes some contractors will give a very favorable bid to us, the low bid, and yet as we go through the change order process, that is actually more than not competitive with the other bidding process. So help me understand why we're seeing these monthly change orders for this contract on city remodel phase 2 for NAI Electric.
Your Honor, happy to answer those questions. So we've had three change orders, as you noted, Councilmember Klein. And I'm going back and just looking at my notes. So one, the large change order that you see from December is when we bid the project, we had in the project the ability to add a transfer switch to the panel that we have for the library to bring the library onto backup generation that we've never had before. And then looking at that, the most efficient way, originally it was laid out to run that cabling through the building. But due to some challenges of the space that we had in terms of running it through the building, and particularly this wall, we found that was going to be more problematic to do that. And so an alternative path that we sought, which wasn't included in the original bid, was to trench in that particular electrical connection in the ground from that far south end all the way around to the generator. So doing it that way did add cost, but it would have been more expensive for us to retrofit what we needed to do to get it through the building. So that was just a existing building design contingency that we didn't anticipate till we tore things open. So that was the reason for the larger of the three change orders. In terms of the other two, give me a moment, I will. And some of these have come up just as we've gotten into construction, but I will bring up the details. One of the other change orders that we had with the electrical contractor is when we were cutting out the concrete to put the new steps in for the lobby. One of the wires that actually serves the parking lot lights was not as deep as we thought it would be, and it actually got severed. as a part of that demolition. And there was no way to know how deep that wire was until we demoed out the slab. And so because we severed that connection, we needed the electrical contractor to rerun that line. So then again, that was a unforeseen damage incident that we had to change order into the original contract. And then the last one. Where's my details on that one? Gotta find I don't have the details readily available on that one, so I will need to find that for you, Councilmember Klein.
Could you just get back to me with that, Matt?
Yeah, I can definitely get back to you on
Appreciate
that last one. But yes, there is definitely times where we have things that are coming up during construction. I know part of that last change order that I do remember is when we laid out the ceiling structure coming down from the lobby into the reception area, we discovered that there wasn't going to be as much clearance when the new steps were put in. So we ended up having to move some of the ceiling wall back and then move some of the electrical. So that was something kind of in project that we had to adjust. So I know that wasn't the whole amount, but that was part of that amount. But I'll follow up and get you the rest of that information.
Thank you.
Yep.
Move to approve item 14.
Second.
Motion second, approve item number 14. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? Consent item number 14 is approved, as for all consent items. Now we'll move to the action items. First, we have a public hearing. Do we publish the appropriate public notice for number 1?
Yes, Your Honor. Actually, all three of them were published in the Des Moines Register on February 25th, 2026.
Very good. Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. On March 4th, 2026, the city of Clive received 3 bids for the following Harbach Phase 2 reconstruction project. Project scope includes a replacement of existing utilities and pavement along Harbach between 86th Street to 82nd Street. In addition to the replacement of pavement, drainage improvements were completed or were designed to upsize the existing storm sewer. Along with that, a trail extension from Harbach to the new Lebanon Park improvements were designed, and new on-street parking spaces will be incorporated on the street that incorporate infiltration practices. Project map has been included along with tabulated bid tabs in the council packet. Bids received were approximately 18% higher than estimated. This mainly appears to be from unique items associated with the project, along with more typical rates on items that we have usually seen discounts on, such as sanitary and water main. Based on this information, staff recommends awarding the lowest bid contractor, Sternquest Construction. Sternquest has completed work in the city recently in 2024 with the Legacy Point widening project. With that being said, recommend a award for the $2,700,344. And with that being said, I'd take any further questions.
Questions for Jonathan?
I'll move to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion second, and to close the public hearing. Before we do, is there anyone to address the council on this matter? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And the clerk please post that vote. So the public hearing is closed by a vote of 4-0.
Move to resolution approving plans and specs.
Second.
Motion second, to approve plans and specs. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move to receive the bids.
Second.
Motion second, to receive the bids. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? Bids are received by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution awarding the contract to Sternquist Construction for $2,734,000.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion?
$2,700,344 is what I meant.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yes.
Seemed
I was
like
close.
a little off, but Further discussion, seeing none, will the council please vote, and would the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. We'll next move to the parking lot improvement project. Again, we have already established that we did publish the appropriate public notice.
Thank you, Mayor. Bids were received on the parking lot improvement project on March 4th, 2026. The project scope includes the mill and overlay of the City Hall parking lot, along with replacement of storm sewer intakes, minor utility improvements, and pedestrian improvements that would allow accessible path from the right-of-way to the building. The project was designed to be completed in stages so that it would allow some limited parking to City Hall at all times during the project. Work is anticipated to begin in early April and be substantially completed in July. Based on bids received, the city recommends the low bid of Grimes Asphalt and Paving Corporation in the amount of $222,674 to be rewarded. That being said, I'd take any further questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So is the reason why we chose a asphalt overlay just for cost purposes is
Primarily, there's also a speed element to it too.
but
Because
what is the lifespan fairly similar or?
For doing a
For that.
full reconstruction, we're anticipating about a 2-decade service life on the overlay design that we have. That parking lot pavement really does vary based on your subgrading existing soil out there.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion and second to close the public hearing. Before we do, is there anyone to address the council on this matter? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? Public hearing is closed by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution approving plans and specs.
Second.
Motion second to approve plans and specs. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the receipt of bids.
Second.
Motion second to receive the bids. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution awarding the contract to Grimes Asphalt and Paving Corporation for $222,674.
Second.
Motion second to approve the contract. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote?
I do that in Denver.
And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Next up, we have a public hearing on PCC pavement rehab project. And we've established we did publish the appropriate public notice. Jim.
Thank you, Mayor. We also received bids last week on a 3rd Street rehab project for this year. This one will be doing full depth concrete patching on University Avenue between Lake Point Drive and 128th Street. As in the past on projects like this with the high traffic volumes out there, we will be doing the work overnight. We received 5 bids. You have that tabulation. I-80 Concrete was red low. They have not been a prime contractor for the city, but we're familiar with them as a sub and have been satisfied with their work in the past. So we would be recommending award to I-80 Concrete for the listed amount. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jim?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion second to close public hearing. But before we do, is there anyone in the chamber address the council on this matter? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution approving plans and specs.
Second.
Motion second to approve plans and specs. Further discussion. Would the council please vote? And the clerk please post that vote. That passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the receipt of bids.
Second.
Motion second to receive the bids. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? And the clerk please post that vote. That passes by a vote of 4-0.
Move the resolution awarding the contract to I-80 Concrete for $439,150.
Second.
Motion second to award the contract. Further discussion. Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? And that passes by a vote of 4-0. Thank you, Jim. Next up, we have a 10-year financial model. Matt.
Thank you, Your Honor. Tonight's discussion item is a follow-up on work that we've been doing over the past 6 months to a year in terms of building on the city's previous financial modeling that we've done. You just saw it in the last two budget workshops, the last two council meetings, and really building it out to a full 10-year model and building the model in a way that we'll show a little bit tonight that can start to develop scenarios, short-term initiatives is what we call them, for the council to provide feedback and maybe want to seek certain options that we want to look at into the future in terms of the city's financial condition. What are some things that we want you, if you recall, when we talked about during the budget process at the very last meeting, I identified, yes, we have a deficit position in our general fund, for example, that we'll be needing to manage at some point here in the near term future. And I described kind of 4 different buckets of ways that we can look at running options and scenarios to resolve that position. What this model that we'll show you tonight will be able to do is we get a sense of direction from the council of where you want to go in regards to those 4 buckets. We can start to model out and show you those scenarios and what it looks like for the long-term financial picture for the city of Clive over that 10-year period. And then we can build on a year, every year like we do in our current financial model. So before we jump into that, I wanted to reintroduce Randy Bauer from PFM, who is the budget division of PFM that has been working with us and for us on this particular project. And he's got some slides to really introduce how we got to where we are today and some key elements of the model. And then Corey Eastman, our finance manager, is going to come up after Randy, and we're going to show you the model live as best as we can here in the council chambers, just to give you a sense of what the capabilities are, because it'll be something that you'll be getting familiar with over the next 6 months to a year as we start to work through getting your sense of direction of where you want to go in terms of those 4 buckets and running different budget scenarios. So with that, I will turn it over to Randy.
Thanks, Matt. So as Matt said, I think many of you are familiar with PFM and the financial advisory side of our business. And that is a separate entity in terms of an LLC from PFM Group Consulting. It's all owned by the same set of managing directors, but we have different roles. So as opposed to the advice on capital and bonding that you get from PFM financial advisors, we work more on the operational side of budgets and putting together long-range financial plans for local and state governments around the country is one of our primary business lines. So in terms of the project background, we'll talk a little bit about how we got to this point for those of you who were not engaged in those discussions last year, how we approached the project, the model itself, and as Matt said, then Corey will kind of get into more of the detail of it, and just talk about why multi-year financial plans are considered a best practice and what are the next steps on this particular project. So in terms of the project background, the city was looking for a proactive analysis of, how will changes to your revenue structure, to your demographics impact on the city's budget in the years to come, and taking a longer range look at that, what you're going to be facing provides you more opportunity to use runway to deal with situations that may arise in not just 1 year's time, but 2, 3, 4, 5, or in this case, as far as 10 years out. So we collaborated with the city, and it was a process of our analysts who built the model, working with Corey, with discussions involving the directors and other managers within the city government as to what are the likely outcomes for the city in different areas of revenue and expenditures over this period of time. So this is something, as I said, that we do across the country. I went back through our business plans for a PFM Group Consulting for the last 10 years, identified about 150 of these that we have done for local governments that range in size everywhere from Newville, Pennsylvania, which I have no idea where that is, which is a village of about 1,400 people, to Houston, Texas, which is the 4th largest city in the country. So these are scalable models that can be built to meet the needs of the particular client. The starting point is always historic data. So we loaded in literally thousands of line items of the data from your financial systems related to both revenue and expenditures for the last 5 years. And I think we actually even went a bit longer than that because of the issue with COVID-related years being different. So if you're building growth rate assumptions around compound annual growth rates, which we often do, you have to sometimes want to pull out those years just because they were so dissimilar. So what we've done then, as Matt said, is also looked at initiatives that could drive decisions that you as council members may make as it relates to what the budget's going to look like on both the revenue and expenditure side over a period of years. So again, that you know that you're not just, the old saying is that you can't see the forest for the trees. And so what this model helps you to do is think about the forest as well as the trees. So the approach was, we provided a data and information request, which we took and then had the interviews with city leadership and subject matter experts. Leadership issues are around where is the city going? What's the strategic direction? Subject matter experts are around the nuts and bolts as to how budgets are constructed and administered. We then built out the financial projection model, worked with Corey, worked with Matt, worked with Pete and others to massage it as necessary to meet the needs of the city and to make sure that aligned with the way you do your budgeting and then the administration of budgets. And then we will license the model for the exclusive use of the city for $1 for 99 years. That is the process now that Corey is going through. He's been working with our model developer so that he's familiar with it and is able to make changes to it on an ongoing basis. In some instances, cities ask us to come back after some number of years, 3, 4, 5 years, and help build out a new model if there have been substantial changes. But in other instances, cities take on the model themselves and are able to run it. Excuse me, I went too far. So this is a screenshot of the baseline of the model, and it identifies, if you look across the bottom, there are numerous tabs that are used to drive the actual baseline assumptions that are shown on this tab. Those key assumptions that we'll talk about in terms of the tabs briefly are the growth rates for the various items, expenditure items, and also for revenue items within the budget, the assumptions that they're built on, the initiatives, that things that could actually change what's going to happen with revenues or expenditures and the impact associated with them. And then the ability to use this model to identify and move from fund to fund. So you want to look at it for the general fund. You want to look at it for the road use tax fund, capital funds, special revenue funds. You're able to move from fund to fund throughout the model. There are no black box things in the model. They're all Excel generated formulas. They're, as you can see, if you look at the top line there, the sum if line, they're pretty involved formulas, but they are things where you are able to audit what the result you get by going through that top line and clicking on the parts of the formulas. And that's something that Corey is familiar with how to do. So this looks at the growth rate assumptions, and this is a key part of the model. And all of these assumptions are things that you're able to change as circumstances change. So often an important issue are the assumptions around growth in salaries or health benefits. And those are things that we have built in the model, discussed with the members of staff as to what's an appropriate assumption. But it can change, and you can change it to see what would happen if, in fact, salary and benefit increases were a different amount than the percentage that's expected in the model. You can see also then there's a provision on the end of what's the source and the rationale for each of the assumptions. Again, so that you can determine whether or not those are plausible or whether it's something that you may wish to change. And then you can build initiatives. So in this instance, it's, you can see on one side is initiation of an insurance levy and what level of levy you would that you could choose to do, and what that would mean in terms of the budget for each of the years from where you decide to start that change. These are all switched. If you see the switch off, most of them are off, but some of them are on. If they're off, they're in red. If they're on, they're in green. That tells you the model will change in real time. If you switched on any of those the initiatives, it would change the baseline assumptions in the model. And so that allows you then to build different initiatives into scenarios and save them so that you can look again, what are your choices at any particular point in time? And what does that generate in terms of changes to your revenue or your expenditures by fund? So just to step back, and maybe I should even mention this first, but as I said, this gives you the opportunity to look at trends and emerging factors over a longer period of time. And that allows you to be planful in terms of constructing budgets, not only for the short term, but in the longer term. Are they going to be structurally sound in the out years? So I think Fitch Ratings, in a report that they did about budgeting best practices, described it pretty well. The value is to anticipate future challenges and allows the executive and legislators to get in front of potential budget stress. I think this is an area where this is a good thing for the city to have done, because you're not meeting a crisis at a point in time where you don't have opportunities and options for changes. As the city builds out and you start talking about redevelopment as much as development, you have enough length of time before that's necessarily is going to transpire to undertake specific affirmative actions that can deal with it. The interesting thing, they mentioned the multi-year plans for New York and Philadelphia. PFM wrote the multi-year plan for Philadelphia, and has been seen as a major success. There was a book written by Buzz Bissinger called A Prayer for the City, which dealt with Philadelphia emerging from almost bankruptcy, and that was part of the PFM work with the city of Philadelphia back at that time. So as I said, sometimes we update these models and other times cities just run with them. That's certainly something that it works for us either way. PFM has had a long and very strong relationship with the city of Clive, and we certainly expect that will continue. Obviously, what the legislature does to you all in terms of changes in property tax structure is something that the model will have to be able to accommodate, and it's been built to allow for that. And, as one who used to work for the legislature, and don't blame me for any of this, this was a long time ago, and then was budget director when Tom Vilsack was governor, I know how much the changes that they're talking about will have impacts on city governments across the country.
So Randy, just a clarification on that. Once they do come out with whatever they come out with, are you saying that you guys will come back and kind of reprogram this?
It's already, the city already has the ability to do that.
Okay.
But if there is a need, and we have told the city this at any time, if there are questions about how the model works or how to change it, I fully expect that they're already able to do it, but we're always available for that.
And Councilmember Weaver, what I would add to that is with some of our FA work, so the financial advisory side of the house, there are tax analysis elements that are included in, for example, in the retainer that was approved tonight. And so what we would anticipate is there's a certain level with what we'll see coming out with property tax reform, where we know there's a bigger model being put together that Iowa League of Cities is working with Piper Sandler, a different group on, but we'll be able to take that and build our own local model. We've been waiting to do that until, and I was going to mention this in my legislative update at the end, is because we still have the three bills, Governor, House, Senate, we're kind of waiting for as I term the Frankenstein bill to come out, which has little pieces of all three of them in some form or fashion, before we really put our time behind developing a model. We want to get a sense of, okay, this is the vehicle that's really going to move. And then we were going to come back, and as we'll show in the model, we kind of have a placeholder to show what the impacts will be from that. So we have the foundational pieces of it. So at a staff level, we've been modeling that. Corey's done a great job. And just even the property tax reform bill last year, we actually created our own model to be a verification on the bigger model that was being developed for cities. I anticipate us doing something very similar this time around, but what's nice is we have that resource there with the tax analysis side to also be a check on us, where PFM can help us out with that too. So that's how I envisioned once we got to a point, hopefully later this month, where we have a better sight line to what's the main bill going to be. And then we can start plugging that in. And then at some point we may even show you the same model with that analysis of here's what the impact is on the city's revenues, particularly in the general fund.
Thank you.
So, the next steps, we originally have a possibility of 3 phases of the project, and this is finishing up the first phase. There's a second phase of benchmarking that we're having discussions, Matt and Pete and others, as exactly what cities would be the logical suspects for benchmarking exercise, and that's something we're continuing to discuss. And phase 3, if you choose to undertake it, would deal with the economic and community development strategies for Clive. And if that happens, it would certainly be after the legislative session is over, so you have a clear understanding of what it is exactly that you will be facing and when, as it relates to changes in the property tax structure.
So as the council will recall, the benchmarking communities, it's really looking at some cities that might be a little bit of ahead of Clive's life cycle in terms of when you hit to build out community as a suburb and what challenges those communities have faced. And so that's the work that we're doing right now, and to try to identify what those comparison cities are, to get it to a really short list. And then we do a deep dive into that short list, and even engaging the staff and the elected officials in those communities to understand how they got to the point that they're at. And so we want to kind of cull the list a little bit to a handful, maybe less, of communities that we can really learn from and see, okay, were there certain kind of policy choices or economic development strategies or land use strategies or choices that they made that maybe worked great for them and they were able to avoid the dip as we've talked about it, or you can also learn from what didn't work well, and how can you reflect on that. So that's really what's encompassed in that phase 2. And then if we decide to do phase 3, that would be okay. We found a couple good examples, again, maybe land use related, that we want to model on our own tax base or our own taxable valuation citywide. And then we can decide whether or not that's an in-house exercise that we could handle or we would need further assistance. And that is our option. That phase 3, we have to give the go ahead on that, and that would come before the council. So it gives us some flexibility if that resource is needed, but it isn't a guarantee for that last phase of the effort. So we'll be circling back with the council on the phase 2 component when we've started to identify those comparison cities and give you that feedback. But if there isn't any other questions for Randy, we'll have Corey just briefly show you what the real thing looks like. And thanks Randy, and Mallory Richards is also online as the analyst that's been working with Randy. She's on the Zoom tonight too, in case any questions came up. And so Mallory and Corey have really been working hard on this model. And we're really to the point now. So this is the live model showing you, and let's see, what tab are you on there, Corey?
We're on the baseline right now.
The baseline. So this is everything all together. So this is all of the city's funds, revenues and expenditures all together. So this is the true kind of massive financial picture of the city. Now, it's important to start here with the baseline, because what we can do is you can take the baseline and then start to basically filter it by how we talk with you all a lot about our financial picture, and that is toggling it by fund. So when we start to toggle by fund, and the general fund is the first one that comes up, as we went through the budget process over the last 2 council meetings, we kind of talked to you about it by fund. And so what we can do here is filter between general, road use, the individual utilities, trust and agency, the new insurance fund. We can now start to show you all of those separately. And you'll notice when you jump over to road use, a lot of the lines go blank because the road use tax fund doesn't have certain revenues or certain expenditures. The general fund is going to be the biggest list because it has the most variety of expenditures and revenues, whereas road use, it's pretty narrow. Obviously, it's only got one revenue, which is state shared revenue, as you see on that line, but then the expense categories will be a little bit more full. But if you go back to the general fund, Corey, and so what we've been able to do is, why we wanted to wait until after we presented the budget to you is this last month, is we wanted to show you, okay, now it's tied out to that presented budget to you. So the budget year 2027 is exactly what we showed you these last council meetings. So we wanted to make sure we had the most up-to-date information. And it shows the past years, the 7 years actuals, the budget year, and then 10 years out in the green columns. So this is just the general fund. So when it goes down to below the total expenses and shows the cash balance, surplus deficit, when you look at the budget year, it's very similar to what we showed you at the last council meeting in terms of where we're at and how, as we've talked about, is how that structural deficit, as we resolve it, if we don't, it kind of compounds on itself. So that's why, as we make recommendations to you all and some small choices that we can make either on the expenditure and revenue side today or over the next year, we can start to whittle that down a little bit and not compound on itself in the long run as we bring our cash balance down as a part of an intentional strategy by the city to bring those reserves down to our policy levels that you all have established. So what we'll be able to do is then run scenarios as we'll show. So actually, Corey, let's show the growth rates tab next. We also can toggle this by department, by state program, and really it's the same information. We're just filtering out certain data, and it's all tied together on the back end and categorized. So we've even further built out the growth rates even here recently. And so you'll see a little bit more things on this list than even the screenshot that Randy showed. And so we're starting to build a lot of these different growth rates in those future years, which may go up, may go down. And what really happens, some of these short-term initiatives that can turn on and turn off will also change some of these growth rates, depending on what the initiative is. So you can see we have that placeholder, line number 5, 2026 property tax reform. So we have a separate tab just for that. And so as we get a better defined bill to model, we'll build the model in that tab. And then that'll drive a percentage growth rate each year that will get reflected here. And then we can turn that initiative on and then it'll show it through the general fund, if that makes sense. And then we can show you, okay, here's what it is today, and here's what it is if this particular reform bill were to pass. We also, House File 718 property tax, that is our current infrastructure or current property tax law in the state of Iowa. So that's the one we're currently using to model our property tax growth in the live model today. And then you can see the other growth rates that are listed in there and how we break things up. So then jumping over to initiatives. So this is the initiatives tab. And you can just maybe Corey show, like if you turn, we won't turn too many of them on because we'll have to turn them back off, but how you can turn them on and turn them off in terms of the different initiatives is basically that red switch goes from red to green, then it filters through. And so we can show what the general fund or any changes to any fund looks like by turning on and off those initiatives. Yeah, you can see the negative if there's something that I don't know which one you're on there. Initiative impact. You're showing the actual impact.
Correct. I'm actually showing what that will actually do to the selective fund by throwing on the administrative fees for solid waste billing.
So that's a revenue increase. So what you'll see is there's a mixture in here. Some of them I mentioned at the last council meeting of ideas within those 4 buckets, revenue enhancements, expenditure reductions, expenditure shifting to other funds, or expenditure shifting with a revenue enhancement. These are even a fuller list that we've been talking about at a staff level. We can add to this list as we go into those buckets in more detail and the council wants to see other ideas. But this will be our primary way of showing that to you. And then we'll be able to even run some multiples of these in combination. So if you want to see some expenditures, you want to see some revenue changes, we can do scenarios where we're running multiple things together all at once. So that, I'm trying to think of, was there anything else, Corey? We have the assumptions in there, but so we just wanted to kind of take the council through a live example of the powerful nature of this tool and how we can use it. We'll be using it going forward in discussions with you all in terms of the different scenarios and initiatives, as we call them. And then getting to the potential bigger initiatives. For example, if we see that a comparison community has made a choice on an economic development strategy that we're really interested in, or a land use policy that we're really interested in as they redeveloped, we could then use the same model. The goal is to use the same model to say, okay, if they decided to do X in terms of maybe it was density in certain parcels of the city, well, that's going to generate such and so much tax base more per acre. We could have another tab where we're modeling that, maybe using our GIS system to derive some of those numbers that then filter into this model to show you, okay, here's the revenue impact if that policy option were to be something we were to implement in Clive and we were predictive of some of the results. So that's that's really the ultimate goal of this whole project from the very beginning, is to be able to provide the council the best tools that we can for decision making in terms of, as we transition to this different position as a community from a high growth suburb that we've been for the last 50 years to now what I affectionately call the sustainable suburb of now being landlocked and, having a plateauing of our growth, of our new construction growth. What does that look like now in terms of infill and redevelopment, and maybe some new considerations that we may need to make as a community that either sustains revenue or changes expenditures because we are plateauing in terms of that growth. What does that look like going forward? And so we can make those recommendations to you all on incremental decisions down the line that meet the needs of the community. So I know I ran through a lot there. Any other questions or things that come up for you, or things that you're not seeing that you'd like to see that we need to consider as we keep working on this going forward?
So knowing you as the spreadsheet geek that you are.
I'm not as much anymore. It's this guy now.
What were you like?
I'm
a kid at
rusty.
Christmas when you first got to play with this, or what?
I mean, I enjoyed it, yes. And Corey, well, I enjoyed it, but probably Corey and PFM didn't enjoy it as much because I instantly was like, what about this? What about this? Why this doesn't look right. What about this? That is the curse of doing this for most of my career. But I'm rusty, Ted. I will say that. Like the capabilities of this tool is something that, was well beyond my skill set. So,
impressive.
But it's good to see kind of how you picture it in your head and then the reality of kind of how it's playing out. So I'm really excited to play around with the tool as we work with you all in terms of options and scenarios that you want to see. And the turnaround rate for us to be able to do that and not have to reinvent the wheel every time will be, I think, helpful for us in terms of the speed of the decision making that you all want to take. So
to maintain this going forward, each year we just add in certain metrics that.
Yeah. So you want to talk about that, Corey, in terms of we're already kind of maintaining the model in a way with when we did this budget update. So I don't know if you want to talk about that.
Yes, when Matt gave me an update that we were going to go live tonight, that was fun. Basically everything in yellow was updated to get this from last year's data to this year's data. So we added just over 150 GL lines of data, plus because I wanted to see the tool do something for me, I added the toggle by state category. So I jumped in and I built this for me because when I go to file the budget numbers, I want to see this actually working so I can use it as well.
But so Corey, I'm assuming that you plug in whatever data you need to from our accounting system or wherever the data is coming from in one location in the spreadsheet, and then it feeds the rest of the spreadsheet.
Correct. A lot of sum ifs, hrefs, multiple different combinations of formulas that will drive off our expenditure and revenue line items, and then everything else will come off the assumptions and initiatives tabs, and that will feed everything else, all the toggle by pages. This is actually live through our connection to our actual data, the server. So if somebody's sitting over in the office and updates a budget number for me, it will appear on here immediately.
Really?
So we took it a step above where PFM gave it to us, and one of Matt's recommendations was it had to be able to be linked to our data. So
you won't have to hand enter in the data at end of year. It will automatically be fed in, like imported, basically.
I'll add another column, name it, and then I'll just drop the data in there as actual, reestimated, and budgeted.
Nice. Okay.
Well, this is a powerful tool. I'm impressed with it, and I like the capabilities and the versatility of it. As we move into that sustainable growth period from from a landlocked suburb, there's going to be hard choices to make in the future, as we all understand that from a budgeting perspective. So this is the kind of tool that we need. I remember back in the day when we had to vote on things and it was a painful process. So this is far more efficient, and appreciate the help on this. It gives us a lot of versatility.
Any other questions or comments on this?
All right, Your Honor, you'll see more of this, but
Yeah.
that'll be it for now.
Looks great.
Thanks, Corey.
All right, the next item on the agenda would be our closed session. And so we would need a motion to move in closed session pursuant to the Iowa Code section outline.
I'll make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
Motion is second to go into closed session. Further discussion? If not, would the council please vote, and will the clerk please post that vote?
Eric? Yeah. Do you vote? That's what I had to do. I did.
Should refresh.
I'm listening.
I'll take a thumbs up if you. Okay.
By a vote of 4-0, we will move into closed session. And we'll wait until the recording has been adjusted. Next up, is there action the council would like to take in open session?
I'll make a motion to approve the settlement agreement.
Second.
Motion is second to approve the settlement agreement. Further discussion? Seeing none, will the council please vote? And will the clerk please post that vote? That passes by a vote of 4-0. Next up, we have our reports. And Matthew, do you have anything?
The only correspondence were in the packet.
Thank you very much. Pete?
Thank you, Your Honor. So earlier this week, we started our process of moving to the Community Connect payment platform. As part of our strategy, we wanted to bring certain groups of folks who are paying today, in some ways, across first, before we started moving the larger group of folks who are using the existing online payment platform over to Community Connect. So that first group that we wanted to start with, we call them the ACH group. These are folks who have an automatic withdrawal from their checking or savings account. We did lots of contingency planning, but did run into a blind spot as we were doing the work. We found that in our process, we cannot have folks who are simultaneously signed up for ACH payment through our old payment portal, simultaneous with our new payment portal. On top of that, because of the timing of when we will bring those payments sort of forward in the middle part of a month, the timing of getting March's bills paid while we were bringing people across to have them ready to go for future April billing got a little mashed up as well. So we've learned a lot in a short amount of time, and our utility billing team has done some very quick work on getting ready to handle the casework and bringing folks through this process if they'd like to stay with the ACH process. At this time, we've layered that with some additional communications, but I do expect you may have some constituents who have some phone calls. The best way for them to quickly, I think, get this resolved is to take a casework approach. So if they're willing to give us a phone call, we've got the information up on the page about Community Connect, and it's also right there up front and center on the front page of the website. They can also email utilities@cityofclive.com. At the rate that we're moving right now, we expect that the roughly 1,500 addresses that received the initial letter because they were using the ACH payment process, they received a letter from us middle of the month. We've already dealt with multiple hundreds of those folks. We think at this rate, we'll be able to get many, if not most of them, resolved before we get into the next month of billing. We also have some other strategies for when we're going to sort of stop the previous ACH system from being able to process payments. And when we do that, it will sort of open up the ability for a more seamless setup for the new Community Connect ACH. I know there's going to be some issues. I know we're dealing with different levels of sophistication with technology, but we do feel at this point that we've got a good process in place to manage the casework. So don't hesitate to direct people to us, please quickly, so that we can work with them if they do run into any problems.
There's no chance we're going to double hit someone ACH, right?
So that's one of the things that we're most concerned about and best, I think, positioned now to make sure it doesn't happen. There will be in middle of early next week, the process of the old payment system kind of pushing those payments forward will happen. Before that happens, though, we're going to cross-check that list with our list of folks who have already signed up for the new platform, and then make sure that they haven't been set up to double pay to the best of our ability.
Yeah, we'll deactivate the old connection if we see that they're already set up on the new.
Okay. And then is the next phase credit card auto pays?
And anybody else who chooses to pay electronically, maybe who isn't set up for an auto pay or an electronic payment today, this new platform solves a whole lot of problems. First, it's cheaper per transaction, saves us all money, which is great. But it also solves an old problem we had that really came up during the lawn watering ban. We didn't have, even for people who were paying electronically, emails for a number of those accounts, which meant that we couldn't use that tool to directly communicate with folks about the lawn watering ban. Now we're going to have a much more robust sort of profile for folks who choose to go into that space so that we can communicate with them either through the portal or through their email if they opt in to get communications that way. So I think that'll be a nice addition from a process and engagement standpoint.
And kudos to Madison and our 2 utility billing specialists who've been dealing with a lot the last 4 days in terms of working with our customers to get them transferred over. And these particular ones with the ACH, they might have had it set up for 25 years. And takes a little bit more time to work through it because they're not as familiar with our online payment system. So we've been doing the best customer service we can, and the folks have been doing a great job with that.
The whole process is scheduled in our plan to take many months. So we start with the planning at the beginning of the year. We start the rollout with this targeted audience in March, and then a more full-blown engagement with everybody who's a utility customer, April, May, and June. After that, I think we'll be in a pretty good spot to evaluate if we need to continue the campaign in a robust way or if we're more in a targeted casework type approach. But we'll be able to track it carefully.
Anything else, Pete?
Couple things, Your Honor. So budget storytelling preparations. This has been a very busy week for me and Molly and all the people who help in the admin services team and other teams to make sure now that you all have given us direction on where you'd like to go with the FY27 budget. Now we need to make sure that we give all of the residents and businesses a chance to look at what you're considering as well. So by the time we get to the end of day tomorrow, we will have our budget storytelling assets up on the webpage. People will see it front and center on the front page. So you can easily tell them just to go to cityofclive.com. The calculator should be updated as well. I've got a version of it that's working well. I just need to now work with our website host, to add some of the formatting pieces to it. It works just like last year's did. So people can put in any property value they want and see what that means for how that will affect their municipal residential property taxes. So excited to get that underway. A lot of these assets then roll into the next thing I wanted to mention, which is preparations for the State of the City address. Not this coming week, but the following. The mayor will be delivering that at a chamber event. And I believe all of you are planning to attend as well. So I'll take care of all of those registrations for folks. When we put that deck together, it really becomes a nice tool for all of you as well when you're thinking about how do you kind of succinctly share what it can be very complex for a lot of people who don't have their brain in this all the time. So we look forward to setting that up for all of you and also creating new tools as you need them to do your due diligence for considering the budget, but on also sharing that information with your constituents. Finally, Your Honor, next week we will have another round of closures on the interstate overnight. Good news, though, this will be the round that opens up, weather permitting, the ramps here at University northbound and the off-ramp onto Hickman when you're heading northbound on the interstate. The University on-ramp northbound is one that I'm particularly excited it's going to be opening up because it's been putting a ton of pressure on 114th Street for a long time now. And it'll be nice to get that interstate traffic where it belongs. After that week of opening up the ramps and getting the new lane alignment finished on the interstate, the following week, still in March, there will be a number of overnight closures on Hickman, full closures on Hickman. And that's so that they can start the demolition work on the inside parts of the bridges. Once they've got that done, then they'll be able to get the traffic moving again on Hickman Road with some periodic closures as they're moving equipment around and getting some of that big debris out of the space.
When is the full closure of the intersection scheduled for?
The multi-week
Yeah,
closure,
yeah.
that'll be daytime closures too, not for a couple of years. I believe that was
2027.
Oh, I thought it was this summer.
No, 2027, and it will be months.
Months?
I would anticipate 2 months.
Yeah, I think they said 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more.
On the caller. We actually talked about that. We saw the staging for the Hickman work, which is 2027. They haven't bid that out yet. That's getting bid here later this summer.
Nightmare.
There will be points at which they're doing all of the lanes underneath the bridges, redoing Hickman, that it'll be closed for, because there's also some storm sewer that they have to do underneath the road as well. So it will be, I would anticipate 2 months, and let's hope it's not 3.
That'll be an important communication piece in
Huge.
advance out, obviously,
Huge.
as we work on our storytelling with that.
Changes our public safety answering routes.
I would think we
too.
would want to work with Urbandale on that communication too, because,
Oh, yeah.
And we have been.
okay.
The interstate closures, Molly and I have really tried to stay on top of it because we think it's a commitment we made with Greenie. If you signed up to hear about road closures in Clive, even if it's not our road, but it's one that runs through Clive, like an interstate, we want people to know. So we've been staying pretty religious with keeping all of those updates. But anything that touches Hickman ever, whether it was the POTUS visit or whether it's this construction or future construction, you can bet this is top of the list to make sure we get that information out.
Anything else, Pete?
No, you are.
You want to give us any water updates?
I can, yeah. So what looked like some little glimmer of good news with our water situation and nitrates at the beginning of the month has sort of turned on us, and it can move that quick. The nitrate removal facility was briefly turned off earlier in March, but it is back on as of earlier this week. As of last night, we heard that they were running 3 vessels of the total 8, but they can only run 7 at a time. Yep. So not full bore with that, but back on because we have in our source, and 2 of our source waters, we were above the nitrate standard and needed to be able to bring those nitrate levels down. So this spring, the member communities are getting ramped up to make sure that as folks think about energizing their irrigation systems, that they do it with conservation in mind, not watering when they don't need to. And when they do need to water, doing it only as much as is necessary to keep their lawns healthy and making sure you don't go out and water the street and other common sense things like that. I think this is going to be a really interesting year to figure out sort of what that song sounds like that we all sing together on Watering Smart. What's also exciting is that it's very much in preliminary place right now, and the board hasn't considered it completely yet, but the plan is in place now to launch a pilot project here in among the CIWW communities where we would be able to retrofit or initially set up some irrigation systems among willing customers that would have one of these smart irrigation controllers on it. And we could use that to gather data and sort of manage when watering is happening to see how much peak load shifting and peak load diminishing work we can do using some of these new technologies. We're optimistic that we can see some great results.
And the goal of that, I mean, what are we trying to achieve there with that, Pete?
Well, there's first off the goal of making sure that we have more ability to prevent the scenario we saw last summer. Nobody wants to go into lawn watering bans. And if we can shift peak, if we can go into more conservation practices, then we won't go back into that situation because of excess nitrates. We'll be able to hopefully manage them in a way with our existing infrastructure that we don't go back into that. So there is the benefit in that scenario of, again, continuing to meet all the safe drinking water standards. That's first and foremost. But second, this becomes a really interesting cost-effective way for us to think about how much capacity do we actually need to build? It's expensive to build capacity. If we can, in effect, get that capacity we need by watering smarter and using the water we have today smarter than we currently are, that could be a more cost-effective way for us to get customers the results they need.
And again, we're looking at right now $1.2 billion in expenditures, but what you're talking about is in a pilot program, instead of all these companies watering, from 6 to 8 a.m., you spread it out overnight, and so you're not peaking as we're dealing with, so you don't need that excess
That's right.
capacity.
Yep.
So
There's also some day shifting you can do. That's
Yep.
despite all the odd even storytelling we've done, you look at the data, you still see that most people are, if they're watering 3 times a week, it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
and they're mostly overwatering.
Lots of
They're
that.
providing much more water than
Yep.
they need.
Yep.
And while you have the floor on water, we sometimes hear about the significance of leaks. And of course, we'll have something in our newsletter this next month. But do you want to talk briefly about how you can avoid leaks?
Yep. So today, our utility billing staff, using a somewhat limited set of tools, given the platforms that we have at our disposal, they run an algorithm that looks for excessive use, but it varies what we can customer to customer with what we can see because of how frequently their meter more or less pings. Is it a daily read? Is it an hourly read? Our algorithm, we only can put one in place, and so it struggles a little bit of time, sometimes differentiating between a leak that it's seeing over the course of a few hours versus one that would be over the course of a few days. And then there's the timing of when they actually see it. A more sustainable position in the future could be for us to start working with residents to give them information about devices they can attach in their own homes that would allow them to be notified on their phone when they have a leak. The same kinds of devices that can show them where they're using most of their water, where they might have chances for using less water and chances to save money as well, and set some goals even internally for what they'd like to do.
200.
Yep. So this is a device actually that I purchased. This Des Moines Waterworks has been in a partnership with this company Flume for a number of years now, where they were getting discounted prices for these devices for customers that wanted to install them. And you just can put it on your meter at home. I'm going to be doing that here with my meter here later this week. And then you can start to get this data. From a leak detection standpoint, this really empowers the property owner to get the knowledge, get it fast, not have to wait for a utility clerk, maybe being able to run the report or being out over the weekend when a leak started. This is a better way to really empower customers to make good choices about how they want to use water. So it could be an option for us to consider as a city moving forward, more research to be done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
I think if you all remember, Shrikant had a system on his house with
He
that
did.
as well. And others,
I have
I'm
one
sure,
now.
as well. Anything else, Pete? Any questions?
No, Your Honor.
Very good. Sadie?
This week, I served on a committee, hiring committee for the Waukee Schools superintendent. That interview process wrapped up this week, and the board announced Dr. Andy Kozier as their selection for the new superintendent for Waukee Schools. That goes to the board actually tonight for the final approval. But great candidates. The process was very in-depth, and I think they went through a 12-hour day that day of interviews from all sorts of different student groups, community groups, parent groups, certified staff, teachers, all sorts of different groups that they went through. So great candidates. The top 3, there wasn't necessarily a wrong choice, I don't think, between the 3 of them when I met them in just that narrow scope of an hour. But I think they were great candidates, and I think they did a great job with the process.
Very good. Thanks, Sadie.
Yep, thank you.
No report tonight.
Eric?
A couple of things, attend the chamber dinner, annual celebration with all the council members here. Thought it went very well. Also give presentation to West Kirk Presbyterian Church members on Greenbelt and the Greenbelt Landing, and visit with the Country Club West HOA on installing a tree planting program there in the barrier against Hickman as we've done assessment and seen the degradation of the tree line, which also has a sound barrier. So we talked extensively, and it could be working with Trees Forever. I don't know yet, and the city possibly, but continue to replace those trees along Hickman Road that acts as a sound barrier and helps to beautify that neighbor as well. So we're continuing to work with them.
All right, thanks, Eric. And I think all of you saw my note about DART, and they'll be looking for a new CEO.
I asked Amanda today at MPO how in the world she could move to Minneapolis, like moving to the belly of the beast.
Yeah, no good answer for that.
No, there wasn't.
Nothing to report.
Anything legal?
No, Your Honor.
Just a couple quick updates. While the state of the city is happening as of right now on the schedule, on the 24th, we were notified earlier, actually yesterday, by the Secretary of Agriculture's office, Secretary Negg's office, of that particular week. He is doing a kind of an agricultural tour week to all different projects that are in the state and wants to visit Greenbelt Landing. We are hoping to maybe adjust the time slightly because right now the time is 12 to 1 on the 24th. But it is going to be kind of a quick visit that he just wants to walk around the site with Richard, our project manager from the city, potentially Pete as well, as somebody who's been an advocate for WQI and our ISWEP partners. So we'll see how the timing plays out. It's going to be a relatively small group. But we're hoping to adjust the time slightly. So we could, a couple more of us could come out and say hi. So I'll keep the council updated as we finalize that schedule. It kind of came up last minute. But we're glad that the secretary wants to come out and see. Obviously, we have WQI, a substantial amount of WQI funding. This is water quality initiative funding from IDOLS in the project across the street. So now that we're actually, because with the ground now not frozen anymore, we're really getting the building done with the bio cells and a lot of those water quality elements. So there's a lot to see now in terms of the holes in the ground. So, and the wetland walkway, we actually have the boardwalk over it. And with some of these heavy rains, we've actually had it fill up a little bit. So it'll be good for the secretary to be able to see that. So we're excited for that. And then just to mention the next council meeting, we will start a little early with a different meeting, which is the normal budget public meeting that's required by state law. That will occur at 5:30 at your next council meeting in 2 weeks. Similar to that, I will be virtual for that meeting as I'll be over at a conference in Iowa City. And so we'll have the brief kind of budget overview presentation. I'm actually going to have Pete do that for the 5:30 meeting. And then we'll have the regular council meeting starting at 6. Which following that budget public hearing, then you can consider setting the formal the formal budget adoption public hearing for the April 9th meeting. So we'll be going through some of those budget procedures at your next meeting. And one of the items too that we'll have on the list for discussion is Chief Rayberg will be bringing forward kind of our current status and language of the e-scooters, bikes ordinance that's been worked on. And he will be presenting that as a discussion item at this point, for you all to provide some feedback, and then we'll seek your direction on ordinance readings moving forward. So with that, Your Honor, there's one other thing I would mention too, as we wrap up tonight. If there's any of you who want to pop down and see kind of where we're at with the renovations downstairs, happy to take you around. We were actually laying carpet this week, so it's starting to look a lot more finished. And really, it'll be the parking lot work that you all approved tonight that will be the driver for when we can get folks back in the building, because it's really dependent on when the asphalt plants get fired up there for the overlay, because we want to get that north piece done before we move staff back in. But happy to take you on a quick tour after the meeting tonight if you're interested. That's all I have, Your Honor, unless there's any questions.
Right, Eric.
Good question. Matt, I couldn't help but to notice that PFM increased their retainer fee 75% this year, and then next year increasing it 122%, and then in 28 even more. What's the basis behind these very, very large increases in their retainer fee?
Yeah, so the retainer fee has not been addressed for over a decade. And over the last couple of years, we have been well exceeding the retainer fee hours that they provide with a number of the projects, particularly on the utility side, but also on the tax analysis side. in terms of the amount of hours that they're spending with us. Of course, when we're changing the structure of our stormwater utility fee, changing our water utility this year, a ton of research that was put into that. They've been well exceeding that number for a number of years and have let it made us aware of it. And as I talked with that team, is recognizing that we're asking a lot more of their time every year than we ever have. And that will continue going forward in my mind, particularly as we talked about tonight with some of the tax analysis related to property tax bills, TIF analysis, that we were well overdue to adjust that number. But we wanted to do it in a more phased way. It is definitely a big jump, but it's
That's
been
a
long
big
overdue.
phase, Matt.
It is a big phase. I
I mean,
recognize
that's
that.
their fault for not addressing this for 10 years. That's not our fault.
True, but I think I also recognize that they've been well in exceedance of $20,000 in staff time to us. That we felt in terms of the relationship and the amount of hours that we anticipate using them going forward, that it was time to catch up and we were behind. Yes, I would also argue we've been seeing the benefit of them giving those services without compensation for a number of years. And now we're trying to get to that level of what they're truly providing us.
It's a big jump.
Understand?
Anything else for the good of the order this evening? Hearing and seeing none, will adjourn at 8:04.